They heard the footsteps of the giant before they even saw him. The ground trembled. The soldiers of Israel stood completely still. No one moved forward. No one spoke. No one dared to fight. For 40 days, one man challenged an entire army, a colossal warrior, trained to kill since his youth, covered in bronze, heavy armor, an enormous spear, a terrifying presence. His name was Goliath, and every time he appeared in the valley, fear took over Israel. But somewhere far from the battlefield, a young shepherd still did not know that he was about to enter history. A simple boy, without armor, without a sword, without military experience, but with something no one else there possessed, an unshakable faith. And on that day, the impossible would be defeated, because giants may seem invincible before men, but never before God. And before we continue, if you enjoy biblical stories told in an emotional and powerful way, subscribe now to the Wisdom and Prosperity channel, because the next videos will be even stronger, stories capable of strengthening your faith, bringing hope, and reminding you that God is still working today. The Philistine army had gathered for war. On the other side stood the people of Israel. The two armies remained separated by a valley, an empty space, silent, heavy, as if the very air itself was filled with tension. Then he appeared, Goliath, the champion of the Philistines. The Bible describes his height as terrifying, nearly 10 feet tall. His helmet shined under the sun. His armor weighed more than many men could even carry. The tip of his spear looked like a weapon of destruction, and behind him walked an armor-bearer, because even carrying his equipment required assistance. Goliath walked to the center of the valley. He looked at the army of Israel and shouted, "Choose a man to fight me." The proposal was simple, 1 against 1. If Goliath won, Israel would become servants of the Philistines. But if Israel won, the Philistines would serve Israel. It sounded simple, but no one moved, not even King Saul, the tallest man in Israel, the king chosen to lead battles. Even he was consumed by fear, and for 40 days, morning and evening, Goliath repeated the same challenge, humiliating, provoking, mocking them. The fear grew stronger every day, because when fear dominates the heart, even warriors forget who they are. And maybe there is someone today who needs to hear this message. So share this video. You never know when a word of faith can change someone's life. While soldiers trembled on the battlefield, David was taking care of sheep. He was the youngest son of Jesse, still very young. His older brothers were at war, but David remained in the fields, alone, anonymous, far from applause, far from glory. But there was something special about that young man. While no one else saw, God saw him. David had learned to trust in the Lord in secret places, in the silence of the fields, during cold nights, on difficult days. He played the harp, wrote songs, worshipped God, and he also faced danger, lions, bears, wild animals, all to protect the sheep. David's courage was not born in front of Goliath. It had been built long before, because great battles are first won in the invisible. And if you want to continue receiving biblical stories narrated this way, turn on the channel notifications. That way you will not miss the next videos, because the next study will be deep, impactful, and extremely blessed. Then one day, Jesse called David and asked him to take food to his brothers on the battlefield. Bread, cheese, simple supplies. David obeyed, without imagining that this delivery would change his life forever. When David arrived at the camp, the soldiers were running to their positions, shouting, the sound of weapons, intense movement everywhere. Then suddenly, Goliath appeared again. The giant walked into the valley and issued his challenge. Once again, the same words, the same humiliation, the same fear, and once again, the soldiers of Israel retreated in terror. But David reacted differently. He was not impressed by the size of the giant. He was outraged. Who is this Philistine to challenge the army of the living God? While everyone looked at the size of Goliath, David looked at the power of God, and that changed everything. Many people only look at problems, but few are able to see what God can do. If this message is already touching your heart, leave a like on this video. That helps this story reach more people. Some men heard David speaking. Soon the news reached Saul. The king sent for him. When David stood before the king, he said something impossible. "I will fight this giant." Saul looked at that young man. Perhaps he thought, how could someone so small defeat such an experienced warrior? And he answered, "You are only a boy." But David told his story. He spoke about the lion, the bear, the protection of God, and declared, "The Lord who delivered me from the claws of the lion and the bear will deliver me from the hands of this Philistine." That was not arrogance, it was faith, a faith built through experience with God. Saul then gave his armor to David: helmet, breastplate, sword, battle equipment. Perhaps Saul believed David needed to look like a soldier in order to win. But there was a problem. The armor did not fit. It was heavy, difficult to use. It limited his movements. Then David made an important decision. He removed everything. Because David understood something powerful. You do not win battles by trying to be someone else. God had already given him what he needed: his experience, his faith, his courage, and his sling. A simple weapon, small, but extremely effective in the right hands. Then David walked to a stream. He chose 5 smooth stones, placed them in his bag, and headed toward the valley. Alone, without armor, without a sword, without the appearance of a warrior, but filled with the presence of God. When Goliath saw David, he began to laugh. Perhaps he expected a strong soldier, an experienced warrior, but he saw only a young shepherd, and he despised him. "Am I a dog that you come against me with sticks?" The giant cursed David, promised to destroy him. But then David answered, and his words echoed across the valley. "You come against me with sword, spear, and shield, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts." At that moment, the battle stopped being merely physical. It became a spiritual battle. Goliath trusted in his own strength. David trusted in God. Then the giant advanced. Heavy footsteps, threatening, violent. But David ran toward the enemy. He did not flee. He did not hesitate. He did not retreat. He placed a stone in the sling, spun it quickly, and released it. The stone cut through the air. In seconds, silence. Then, it struck the giant's forehead. Goliath fell. The ground shook. The giant was defeated, without a sword, without armor, without human strength. Because when God decides to act, the impossible becomes reality. And if you believe that God still performs impossibilities, write in the comments, "I trust in the power of God." When the Philistines realized that Goliath had fallen, they were overcome with panic. The man who seemed invincible was dead. The giant had been defeated by a young shepherd. Then the army of Israel found courage again. The soldiers advanced. The Philistines fled. The battle changed completely. And on that day, Israel won. But the greatest victory was not military. It was spiritual. Because David proved that faith can overcome what seems impossible. He showed that God does not choose people based on appearance, strength, or position. God looks for hearts that trust in him. That same valley still exists today. Maybe your giant has another name: fear, debt, sickness, anxiety, family problems, closed doors, impossible situations. Giants appear in everyone's life. But the story of David reminds us of something powerful. The size of the giant will never be greater than the power of God. On that day, everyone saw a giant fall, but few understood the true secret of victory. David did not win because he was strong. He won because he believed. While the world saw a boy, God saw a king. While men saw impossibility, God had already prepared the victory. And maybe today, you are also standing before a giant, something that seems too big, too difficult, too impossible. But remember, the same faith that sustained David can still sustain you, because giants continue to fall when God enters the battle. And do not leave now, because the next video in this biblical series will be one of the most powerful and emotional stories in Scripture. A powerful message, transforming, and capable of renewing your faith. If this message touched your heart, subscribe to the Wisdom and Prosperity channel. Share this story with someone who is facing giants in life, and leave in the comments, "With God, I will defeat my giants." See you in the next video.